Optimism expanded. How many people want to know what that actually means? To us, it's a heart, right? It's a heartbreak for many who say, I can't even make it to an original sin, right? How many people are dealing with this idea that I am left behind? We are talking about people who are so afraid to come forward and say, I can't make it to that level of love for others because in my mind, I am holding people accountable for their own actions. So therefore, I do not feel optimistic about the future for all of us versus myself or my family, right? I'm included in the vision of love of all. So if we are to expand our vision of optimism, many would say that my ability to create from a place of love of all is one in which I expand my awareness to those outside of my soul group, to those who don't align with necessarily who I am, and I see the beauty of those visions coming through that are placing others in that vision of, I'm here to do a service for you. You see, some souls are here to create havoc in order for the destructive process to allow the new to come in. And some of those visions aren't pleasant, are they? And some of those visions aren't expanded upon, are they? Okay, so this is about the optimism expanding. And it doesn't mean that it's done on a mental level only. It can be an internal sense of soul that can come through and say, I am always guided by my heart or my mind. Most are in their minds, but on the soul level, you are always of love, whether or not you feel it as such or not. It can be hard for those who are in the struggle of their lives to feel optimistic about the future. It is part of the process of growth. So it could be that you're just experiencing a growth point in your vision. We don't deny the authenticity of all souls. What we do is we say we are not all there in our minds, and that is part of the problem, right? It's not a problem on a soul level, but it is an outcome-based vision that many are saying we vibrate in. Many are assuming that I am surrounded by the negativity of those in my life. I have not done the work to either allow for their souls to create havoc without it affecting me on the mental level, right? It's a vibrational frequency that many are feeling, hearing, sensing, right? The sensing souls versus those who are I'm able to unwind the vision of destruction in my mind. I don't allow others of negativity in my life or on my screen. There are many who are challenging themselves to obey the rules of manifest destiny, right? It's manifestation, really, that we're talking about. But optimism, it's not about trying to create anything for others or even ourselves. It's an understanding and an awareness that love does conquer all, right? It's not a conquering, it's an embodying of it. I embody my soul, I embody my wisdom, which says that if I am aware of my ability to create outcomes for myself and others, I know how to keep myself high, right? Not always. And that's where our souls come in and say, I've got your back, or I'm on your side. You will hear those visions from your soul vision very often to help you listen in to the beauty of what we're talking about. We don't all get to feel optimistic about ourselves and or others. What we do is we learn to accept the visions we've created before us. I love myself enough to say no to those around me who try to draw me into their negative energy. It is not negative in the sense of the energy itself may be of a different frequency. It doesn't mean it's going to feel bad for everybody. Now, when we have personal conflict issues, that's a different story. If you are being hurt, demeaned, belittled, etc., that's your growth point. That's your time to go in and ask yourself, why am I aligning with those who are trying to take others down rather than use communication tools of wisdom to help enlighten us to the higher nature of who we are on a soul level, and to allow that vision to work its way down into our soul visions here on this plane. Some people will say the atmosphere. It is the atmosphere. That's also why we create a lot of the natural disasters. Many are unaware of how our vibrations shift the weather. This is one of those things that is talked about in detail in the vision of Seth and Jane Roberts, and she is aligned with Brenda's vision. So for those of you who understand the strength of that soul, she hears from her regularly. It is a soul-to-soul communication that Brenda is undergoing with many souls. She hears their vibration. Some are not as pleasant as others on the soul level. It's like felt as disfiguring for many. Some will say this is not the right place for me, and they will discard that information. I'm telling you, create with whatever beauty you have. Create with whatever wisdom you have. See the results of your wisdom. See the results of your creation. And ask yourself, who am I aligning with? And what is the result that I'm looking for? Others are not aware of what they're creating because they're assuming that others are looking out for them. That can be a beautiful vision. Your souls are indeed guiding you in your wisdom. What you have to ask yourself is, am I actually aligned with the vision of guidance from my soul, or am I aligned with the vision of love from another? You see, that's where many are. They're saying, I just want the love of another. And that's where you start to then get those disparaging results or comments. People need to understand the reality of what it does when you are tapped into the nature of all, and you hear from souls that you have either created with at one point in time or those that you are going to create with. And what you're creating is the magic and majesty of all. I've aligned with souls who know how to integrate the wisdom of the world, embody the vision of my soul is of high. I lift myself up. I look into the mirror. I love who I see, correct? Not always, but I know that I am of worth and I am of wisdom. And that is enough to take me through to the next level of enlightenment. We are talking about those souls who know that others' perceptions of who we are not always the best. We cannot run in fear from those who disparage us. We must confront them directly, right? Not always. Others are saying, I must confront the demons within. That is your version of devil or Satan or whatever vision you want to create with that is holding yourself prisoner in the mind. That is what that vision is. It has been demeaned by many, but it is also like revealed and reviled by a lot. We are not here to talk religious aspirations. That is where some go. If those aspirations create that heavenly realm for you where you can freely contribute to society's wisdom in a way that is of constructive criticism rather than disparaging insults, you are honored for it. Your soul will never come through and say, I encourage you to belittle others. That's usually what that vision is, depending on where you align. If you are in the vision of I am of love, I have hate in my heart, right? You do not have it in your heart. It is only in the mindset. You free yourself from those sinful visions is where many would go. But we would say the shadow, that's another vision that Brenda has worked with in the past, right? It is just a vibrational shift that you do with your mind. We learn, it's like the tools of the trade to help us see the beauty in the world that we are actually living in versus the negativity that we see often on our screens. It can be presented to us in person if we are in those disparaging relationships with people who don't actually align with who we are in their minds. But understand that those communication issues are just of love from a different level of conflict. And this is where many are in their mind. I'm in the conflict mode with my mother or my father or my friends or These are often the souls that are the ones that will have your back from a soul level. They are there whether or not you understand it. Brenda hears from her own family and friends who are even still here. It's from different levels of understanding. And when you go to that vision of I am tapped in, dialed in, and ready to hand you your own hat. So some people will say, I can't handle that. I just want to be in this plane of understanding, getting the wisdom to help me look into the mirror and feel beautiful about who I am. Not just in the physical sense, but in the sense of my heart is free and clear of conflict. How do we get free and clear of conflict? It's in our minds, but it's part of the discovery process of where am I actually feeling the conflict? If it's on a soul level, then that means there's something being worked out between souls, and there are those disparaging comments that will get labeled as bad or negative. But what it is it's a freeing of the energy of those souls who were here at one point in time, but were not able to lift themselves up to another level of love. That is all that is. It has never been of sin for the most part. This is part of that vision. People are placing values as dictates or as actualities. They are what they are. They're beautiful if you are vibrating in them. That's the nature. If you see a soul that you hate, you vibrate with them and you are creating with them, whether you want to or not. So you might want to think very carefully about who you align with. Do you love your family and friends? If you can say, yes, I honestly do, you're already in one pleasant place and time, right? Many were in places and times where they had no families, they had no friends, they were in the visions of victim, and they needed something absolutely strong and worthwhile to help lift them up to another level of understanding. We're utilizing words of wisdom that are of beloved and those of I am below you. Many are utilizing these visions to lift themselves up, but they do so at the cost of another vision. And that is the honesty of the moment in which we are vibrating in. We are not saying there is any one bad way to be. That is not what we are here to do. What we are here to do is to honor your souls, honor your vision, and ask yourselves the questions. Where am I feeling good about who I am? Do I create from a place of joy? How many people can honestly say they love who they are? Whether or not someone else comes in and says, you're this or that, doesn't make sense, right? Many are saying, I utilize the words that I was brought up with or that I love to throw out at people who don't align with my mindset, because I can tell you right now that is where the majority of the people are who are on the soul level, right? You are not on soul level if you're out there belittling others in their minds, right? It's the minds. So this is why many are saying, but that is a subjective vision. If you have the intention of, I know I'm trying to take others down, on a soul level, you will have your hat handed to you by many. You will say, I love you, and they will hear it coming back as you are belligerent in your tone, right? There are souls that I create with in the mode of struggle. There are souls that I create with who are in deep pain, deep sorrow, deep misfortune, it's like, that's where it's this deepness that many are. It's like, it feels like it's an overburdensome, way to be in this world. You have to be able to create a place of cherishing the moments where it is not. And then you reflect on those moments of, I am of love, I am of light, right? Others are saying it's light and dark. You have missed the point entirely about what frequency and vibration is. It is only light as much as someone says it is, correct? Whose version of what is light and dark are people utilizing? Can you look at me in the mirror and say I'm of light? Or is it the words I use and the way that I hold myself? You see, many put on the mask of light, but inside they are tragically condemning others with their minds. What does that say to you? This is about unwinding the vision of I'm better than anybody else on the screen. And that's the nature of who I am. We don't utilize better than on this plane very often. It can be held in the hearts and souls of many who say this is why she unites us rather than divides us. She has her heart. She knows her victim mentality can sometimes come across very strongly with some of her soul visions in the afterlife. It is a working out of soul vision from who we were here, and we often project those visions of negativity back onto them from the plane of earth, rather than they have risen and they are all there vibrating in the beauty of love of all. You see, when you vibrate in the beauty of love of all, you get that coming back to you. Now, whether or not you actually embody that vision in mindset is one aspect, but when you know it, or your soul is with you and can do that work on the spot, that's when you know you've done the work that allows for that kind of information to come through. Optimism is a beautiful expression for all of us because it literally is, I just love looking into the future and seeing the benefits of who I am. I can see the positive in my missteps. They sent me down another path that was perfect for me, whether or not I felt it as such in that moment or not. It means I'm creating here. I'm still ticking, right? Right? My heart's still ticking. Okay, others are saying my beautiful heart is still ticking. I still have a heart. I still have a soul. I'm still loving myself, right? We have Freddie Mercury on the line. He was love yourself fiercely, and he says that's what's needed. People here are going to be angry. They're going to be cruel. They're going to be awful to many because of the nature of where people go on the internet especially. Brenda keeps hearing about the deconstruction of the internet. We're going to talk about the reality of who creates what and with whom on a screen versus the idea of, am I actually creating with every person I interact with in a group? It's a group dynamic where all souls come together. But it doesn't mean that when you go to the soul level, you hear from them. So be optimistic that you all are able to tap into the nature of your own soul. This is what we rise into. You're all connecting. You're all creating. You're all beautiful. But what are we doing to others and why? We don't like the results that we're getting from what? From others' opinions about who we are to be? You see, these are the Vision Quest episodes that we're going to be talking about, where we say, I know how to create a better future for more than myself. That's the beauty of love. Others will say, but my forecasting isn't as strong as it used to be, right? Brenda's forecasting has been on the spot. What happens is she was in a tough place in her mind, and she said, this is ridiculous. The school shootings are very, very frequent at this point, and they are of mass. And that's why she's not getting on the screen as much, because it is of sadness and sorrow, right? So those visions, while they are there doing what they're doing, how do you remain optimistic when you are able to do the vision of tragedy to show people what the reality is in the moment? So this is why she's being shown sports scores and winning teams and coaches and players that lift her up as she hears their visions of celebration, and sometimes it's like dejection. And it's a weird word for many, but it's going to be valid. So while we say optimism is in the mindset, it can be an embodiment of a soul that knows how to get you there. How many people want to do that vision? I joyfully create with those who create havoc is where many are. How many people are happy about something that causes havoc for others? This is playing out for us, right? We celebrate the division in our own lives, right? But this is the nature of change that many are creating. And so many will say, this sucks for us, right? That's usually where that dynamic is. So once you go out of the field of vision of I'm in competition with somebody, it can often be easier to see it as a play in life. Who are the players that I'm watching? Who are the visions of love that I'm creating with, right? We're trying to help you expand your vision of optimism as more than just a mindset that people will say, I'm just going to imagine myself in a better place in time. That's the view of heaven. I get to rise into the view of I get to go to heaven. I get to go rest and reflect upon my vision as it was played out here on this plane of existence in some people's mind, and others would say this plane of enchantment. You see, the words that you are reinforced with as children are often encouraged in your own soul vision. I align with those who are of destruction, or I align with those who are of lifting others up, or I align with those who are able to take care of others, or I align with those who are able to see the future, or I am able to align with those who are of life. And they just live their lives beautifully, and they go about their day every day, not having a care in the world, right? It's not about, I don't have a care in the world. This is that idea Brenda was putting forth about the Pollyanna effect. Most people will say, I feel good around certain people who can see the beauty of who I am. And that is one thing. But does it give you the results that you want in your life? You see, many are creating destruction with others, and then they feel good in the moment, but then it brings them tragedy in the long run. Okay? And that's why the nature of optimism as an expanded vision is part of the story in which we're creating. How do I embody an optimistic attitude towards myself first and foremost? That's your first goal. Because we are the creative geniuses doing those words. I love you. How many times can you say that to yourselves in the mirror, right? How many people know I look at myself in my body and I point out the things that I don't quite like about who I am? That doesn't matter for most, right? It can, depending on your circumstance. Am I loved for who I am by others? You see, and this is where you have to take apart those visions that another's vision is somehow superior to yours in how you create your own vision of who you are. We love you. Don't set us free. Most people think that my validity of soul vision rests on one soul's vision only. That is not the case. I've done systems after systems of love in which every soul was honored for their unique creative ability and none were better than. Do you know that? No better than here on this plane of existence. Every soul's personality and vibration is of a vision of love of all. That means that when you go to that vision, you don't have to hear the vision of destruction that someone may be playing out on a soul level. It's just done in a way that is honoring of it, and that's when you get those fields of vision of this is what's coming our way. And it doesn't have to be felt as trauma. This is another force that many are reaffirming in their minds, and we want to deconstruct that vision of what trauma is at some point. Others are saying I actually reinforce it when I focus on it. It depends. Brenda has had to deal with that vision recently, and that was another reason why her optimism was somewhat shattered for just a moment. I wasn't free and clear from those in my past. I had to come to another understanding of who I was and who I will be. I get to hear the visions of love coming to me from my friends, my family, my loved ones. And if I react in a negative way, it is up to me to do the work that does that lifting up. But her soul comes to her very often and gives her words of wisdom. Others sometimes will give her those tests of love to see, can she make it to the all on her own without her own soul's vision. This is where guidance and channeling and vision questing and forecasting come into the picture. You would be surprised how much Brenda is able to bring through on her own, but you would also be surprised to hear the negativity that she sometimes puts out towards others in her vision. She's the first to admit she's not perfect, other than I'm perfect in my imperfection. I take one step at a time in the growth and development of my mind and my soul. And this is what we're doing on a soul level with her as she starts to create her own vision of love of creation and of soul. It becomes that stepping stone into another field of vision for all of us, where we can all unwind, relax, enjoy each other's company peacefully, opening up to each other about our own fears of revealing who we really are in this plane. But when you go to that level of soul, it's like constantly reaffirming that you are of love. You are of love. You are of love. That's the nature of it. So why are we so worried about what others on this plane are doing or thinking that is somehow not in alignment with who I am? That's Brenda's problem very often. She's very much of I'm here to make a change in our minds. Not just that. It's more about if we all understood the nature of how we actually create on a soul level, you would be acting very differently. And that's the nature of what many are afraid of. You will never come into this vision of, I'm fearful of my future or of the afterlife. That's where those who are of, I need to go immediately to a compassionate soul who loves me, honors me, adores me, and has the wisdom that I need. That's where many will go with their various visions of love of high. We're not going to be naming names as of yet because of the nature of disregarding of certain souls that has happened in many people's minds. Many people will assume there is only one soul that can lift them up to those higher realms of love. You would be surprised what we can do here on this realm. And that's what many in the spiritual enlightenment zone are doing, and those in the religious realms as well. Many are there who are not even trying. And Brenda's soul says, I was there as a child in certain aspects. I knew how to do that work of optimism for us and those around me. And it made others adore her. I can see the beauty in who you are and the pathways before us. We may be encountering a struggle, but let's work on it and we can get ourselves out of it. And that's the nature where many have given up on their lives. And that's the nature. We want you to see possibilities of love abounding. Abundance of love, right? These are all those words that people are using, and it's still it's like triggering for some people because they're like, my abundance has dissipated in the recent years, right? But we create from a place of possibilities. You never know when those possibilities are going to occur, right? People come into our lives that change our lives forever. It can happen on a dime. That's the nature of who we are. And so when you think about the nature of optimism, it also means understanding that you are just one person. And yes, you can affect many people on your own. But this is a creative endeavor, not only here on this plane, but our souls are creating those visions for us very carefully. Who comes into my vibration is where most will go. Others will say, I have no help. I do my own vision of business. It depends on what happens in your mind. We love who we are. You tap into the nature of soul, and then you start to get the vision of I am being watched. People will be afraid of that idea of I'm being watched by my family or friends. There is respect always for those souls who are in the vision of I'm of public disclosure. I get the apprentice vision coming to me. We're talking about those who would see themselves as an apprentice of soul. This is where most of us lie. We are in the learning phases of soul. We are embodying our soul. We are creating as souls. And it's a beautiful vision of joy and wonder when you make it to that vision of I love who I am, and wherever I am, I just don't know who I am. That's where many are. They start to wake up out of this idea of I don't understand the world now, or I don't understand why are we creating what we're creating, or why am I creating what I'm creating. And that's what I'm here to show us. Often people will get disillusioned with the results. They will get disillusioned with the idea of I love who I am. It doesn't mean you always feel good about who you are, but you love that you are here. Otherwise, you would not be here. You understand. You are here. You matter. You are loved. So with that vision of optimism expanding, let's look into our hearts and our minds, and let's see, can we expand our field of vision past ourselves if we are there? Can we expand that vision to our immediate surroundings? This is where you broadcast to the vision of family, friends, loved ones, right? Can I see the love through the difficulties is where many will need to go. We had our difficulties, but I can honor their vision. We were here to grow with each other is where many go. It can be a lesson in love for all. When they finally release the pain and sorrow, disappointments of other souls' visions that weren't exactly pleasant for you. How do I enlighten myself to another field of understanding where I myself hear my wisdom coming to me in my ear? See, there's a difference of those who are hearing their visions outside of what it's like, outside of who they are, versus those who hear it constantly. You will feel the beating of your heart expand and contract when you embody soul vision. You will hear the visions of love, of self. They will often contract their energy so as to give you peace and freedom from the vision of I am possessed. I am sorry to tell people that vision is being pretty much lifted up into a higher vision, because many would say that those are the lost souls. It is not of possession. It is of uniting. And the idea that anyone is possessed means that they have just united with a version of who they are that is not known to us here on this plane. You want to get to the nitty-gritty of soul work? I can tell you what those visions mean for a lot, and those visions of I'm going to place negativity or names on people. Brenda's had to deal with that vision, and she's had to expand her vision past it. That's the expansion. I don't limit the vision of those who want to create with that vision, but I will broaden your perspectives so you can see the outcomes of those who have done the work, been accused of various things of negativity, and then grown through the process, expanded their awareness, and now have become one with their own soul and one with all. That's when you hit the wonder world. That's when the wonder of the world comes before you. Now, with that in mind, I am going to say thank you for your wisdom. I create with all of you. I love you, even if I don't align with you in the mind. And that's a very, very difficult place for a lot of people to create from, because we see something and we say, that's who I am, on a different level of understanding. we're not going to go to those highest of highs for everybody, because the reality of what we're creating can often be very much of soul, right? That's that nature of, I want to know right now what's going on, why, and how can I make this a better relationship, not only for me, but for the other person? Or are we just looking out for ourselves? You see, that's that nature of win-win. Can we make a win-win? Or do we always have to just destroy everybody else's vision in our minds? The win-win means that there's a give and take of love. Some will say hate as well. We can hate our enemies, right? That means there's aspects of that within ourselves. It's an attraction field. I'm attracting those that I hate. What does that tell you? I love you so much. I want more of you in my life. People will not understand that vision, but it is literally there to help us rise out of that idea that they are somehow separate from who we are on a soul level. And our energy creates from that place of love. So when you go to your own soul, though, there are those nuances that can say, yeah, this is not the vibration you want to be with, because this is an abusive situation or this is a tragic situation. And your soul will come through to tell you how to get out of it, so we can have you creating from a higher. The nature of what many are aiming for. They're looking for, I want to feel good, without actually realizing that they've never felt bad. I'm just angry. What's good and bad? These are subjective visions. I feel beautiful in my moment when I'm just complacent in my mind. Many are complacent in their ideas about what they feel like. I'm thinking I feel one thing. My soul is saying, you are heartbroken, right? That's what we need to understand. Others are utilizing those tools of mindset mastery to lift themselves up in the mind enough that they can kind of get that boost of energy, or that boost of love, or that boost. You're chasing the dream, my friends. You're chasing the dream. It's a work in progress for all of us. I have my own experiences with it as Brenda's soul. She is combined with her love of her life in many ways, and it gets denied in her mind for fear of rejection from another level. Okay? That's the nature of the kind of soul work that often can come through our relationship dynamics and what we're creating and why. Brenda's afraid of being rejected by a certain soul on this plane. So much so that she actually creates it. How about that? It's a believable phenomenon when you experience it in your own soul. And then she says, why would I assume that anyone would look at me and what I'm doing with validation and proof of future and say that somehow I'm less than, when the words that I'm often utilizing are words of love, comfort, and uplifting, or of understanding. But you'd be surprised what others have been told in the name of others that they can or cannot do in order to be seen as what? That was from a different place in time. Now we are rising in our vibration. This is the shift that many are talking about. It's a continual shift of energy. There's no one shift that's going to allow like many to come in. It is when it is created here, then we create from the idea that there's a shift in energy. And there are those patterns that are starting to play out in the minds of many. And it is of religion, spirituality, and the nature of anger that many are seeing. This is why we see a lot of the anger energy. So when you see a lot of anger, realize those are those values that are getting worked out as well on a soul level. My values don't align with somebody else. If you think that your values are the only ones that matter in this world, you need to really think carefully about what that would mean for everybody else. Okay? We love each other as they are, is where soul vision is. until it affects us, is what Brenda says. Now we're going to talk about that. She is not of optimism always, right? Optimistic. I'm optimistic in the view of I know how to handle myself on a soul level, and I can see the limitations that others are creating either for themselves or for me. So then I go in and I expand my vision to one of love of all of us, and I ask myself, does this vision that's being portrayed to me actually limit all of us or any of us? If it's a limiting belief, it gets unwound. And that's where many will start to see why she can smile, because she knows a lot of people go, uh-oh. It's not an uh-oh, it's an aha. Does this apply to everybody, or could it, right? And when we say that, it's more like the idea of a value system. If I came into this world, would I inherently know that this value existed without someone telling me? And this is where many will come into that vision of, but I was told by this or that, or this person or that person, that in order to be accepted and loved by my family and friends or society, I needed to believe in something as better than. And this is part of that vision getting worked out right now. It's a beautiful vision of conflict on many levels, but it's of love. Brenda hears it all the time. And she says, I can understand. I place myself as a child, innocent in my beauty, on an island without any knowledge of any other books. Would I create with the mindset that I see many creating with? Or would I be beautiful in my soul as always? You see, because that's what I did. I utilized the visions of love of family and friends and society. I had that benefit to be able to do that vision. I wasn't conditioned in society's vision of we are less than. Ever. My family is of faith in certain aspects. Certain members of my family are in the vision of faith, but they never held anyone as better than. In fact, they went out of their way to hold people up in their minds. Okay, but if we're utilizing visions of books to tell people that they are less than because of something that they read and that it is of universal vision, we will have to delve into that topic at another point, because this isn't about a condemnation of any value system. So if those value systems are lifting you up to where you can be optimistic about the future, don't utilize destructive visions. If you want to vibrate in destruction, vibrate in destruction and be good with it and honor it and admit it. And then at least you can say, I'm creating from a place of authenticity. I'm here to do the destruction that others are saying I need to do. That's where some go. And then others will say, but what about that view of expanded optimism? Where do you think they get the optimism from? Because maybe they have a higher vision of what's needed in order to clear out things that need to go. This was very much of the slave state. Okay? That vision needed to go. So had we just stuck by our views of, well, everything will work out without anyone doing any work, that vision would still vibrate. Would we think that that's actually a great place to go? No. So let's expand our vision to one of optimism, of we are moving things forward. It's a bringing back of those options and those possibilities for our future. That's why the book of Revelation has basically been done with. And many will disagree, but many are unenlightened to the nature of what that book was actually referring to in the vision. There are many who actually know the vision is of Roman Empire destruction and not of the end of the world. Take that to the bank. Do your research. Don't just count on those in your sphere of love Will spiral you up to the beauty of, thank God, I don't have to worry about the end of days. That's what that is. So, with that in mind, I want to say, take care of your hearts and your wisdom and your souls. Look into the mirror, acknowledge the beauty of who you are every day. Say, I love who I am no matter what I feel like I am. I am soul. I am love. You could say whatever you want, but acknowledge those visions of I am beauty. Whether or not I feel like it doesn't matter. I'm here and I'm like optimistic about my future. I'm aligning with those who know how to handle my heart. If I come through as strong, by golly, I'm going to be strong. If I'm of love, by golly, I'm going to be of love. If I feel like I need to inform or inspire, I will do that. It's up to us to decide how we want to be in the world. So with that, I want to say thank you. You're just an amazing, amazing amount of love. So I want to say thank you again. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I will see you again soon. Goodbye.